Good morning and welcome to another edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. It is Wednesday, March 16th, 2022, the 195th anniversary of the Black Press of America, which began on this date in 1827 in New York when John Westwarm and Samuel Cornish opened Freedom's Journal. It is Black Press Week, and tomorrow the NNPA has a big day planned, beginning with Let It Be Known, where our special guest will be Dr. Rashay Richardson and the megastar Beyonce's dad, Dr. Matthew Knowles, for a special program. Then visit and tune in to www.nnpa-events.com for a Black Press Week National Forum beginning at 11 a.m. Eastern. But it's time to talk about Kanye West. D.L. Hughley and Charlemagne the God were among those to lash back and out at Kanye. We discussed that this morning, the mental health of Black men in general, but we're talking about Kanye West as a springboard. We're going to talk about that with Dr. Thomas Oden, a board certified psychiatrist who specializes in, among other things, psychotherapy, and from the Amsterdamn News, Josh Barker. But first, the headlines this morning, and we invite our colleague from the Amsterdam News, Josh Barker, on to discuss the headlines this morning. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning. How are you? Good to see you again. We were in Florida last week.
Absolutely had a great time. Those Disney Dreamers were absolutely phenomenal, and looking forward to doing it again next year, Josh.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was a great event.
Yeah, Josh, to start the morning, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves signed a bill on Monday to limit how race can be discussed in classrooms, and it became law immediately. Contrary to what some critics may claim, this bill in no way, in no shape, and in no form prohibits the teaching of history, according to the Republican governor. Any claims, he said, that this bill will somehow stop Mississippi kids from learning about American history is just flat out wrong, he claimed. The short title of Senate Bill 2113 says it would prohibit critical race theory, but the main text of the legislation does not mention or define the theory, and many supporters of the bill also have said they cannot define it. The new law says no school, community college, or university could teach that any sex, race, ethnicity, religion, or national origin is inherently superior or inferior. The ACLU of Mississippi said in a statement that laws opposing critical race theory are thinly veiled attempts to silence discussions of race and gender among students and educators. Josh, we keep seeing this over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Two things I want to say. Number one, we've talked about this quite often on the radio show that I do about critical race theory. And the fact of the matter is that when you say the word critical race theory, no one seems to have a fine definition of what it is exactly. Critical race theory could be, oh, you're talking about slavery and segregation back in the day, and it's offending me. And that could be considered as critical race theory. Or even having a discussion about differences or diversity can be considered critical race theory. So there's no real definition here. It's based off of feelings. And so when someone feels uncomfortable about talking about a certain issue when it comes to race, that's where the critical race theory button starts to get pushed. Other thing I have to say is I saw a very interesting photograph of the young lady, the Central High School students back in Little Rock, Arkansas, back in, I don't remember the year. And there's a picture of a white lady yelling at the black girl when she was going in. And in the top of the meme, this is an internet meme, it said the very people that were racist towards Black people are trying to keep the history out of those who need to know about it. So the very people who were the causes and the culprits of segregation and racism back in the day are now doing everything that they can to try and keep what they did silent and undiscovered. So it just boggles my mind that those are the people who are trying to silence this and use this critical race theory button as a thing. It's really crazy.
and real quick, Josh, you can't just tease everybody about the radio show. You got to tell us what that radio show is and where we can listen.
Absolutely. So I do a show here in New York City on 107 point. Well, I'm sorry, WBLS.
Yes.
107.5 FM WBLS with Imhotep Gary Bird. I do co-host a show every now and then. I was doing it on a regular basis, but my position changed at the Amsterdam News. So I'm only doing it ever so often. And I also do WBAI here in New York City on weekends as well, usually on Sunday mornings on BLS, Friday evenings sometimes on WBAI here in New York City. So you can stream us, and I'm on there every now and then talking about some of the issues that we're going to be talking about today. So please, if you can, tune in.
Well, if you are from New York or know anything about New York, you know WBLS is the classic station. Frankie
Absolutely.
Crocker and all from WBLS. That was the station we grew up on. Also in the news this morning, Stacey Abrams' campaign for the governorship of Georgia has officially hit the road. The Democrat kicked off the next phase of her campaign with a rally in Atlanta on Monday evening. The event follows a quiet few months since Abrams announced her bid for governor in December, when she set in motion one of the most anticipated campaigns of the 2022 midterms. Stacey Abrams released her first television commercial with the hashtag Never Quit. Her campaign theme is One Georgia. She says, I want you to join with me to make joy for Georgia, to make opportunity for Georgia, to bring success to Georgia. I want you to stand with me. I want you to run with me, and I want you to win with me, because in November of 2022, we're going to become the governor of the great state of Georgia, of One Georgia. So Stacey Abrams has officially kicked off the campaign in which she's now starting to run commercials. And we're joined now by Dr. Benjamin Chavis, the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. Good morning, Dr. Chavis.
Good morning, Stacey, and good morning to our guests. On behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we represent 230 African-American owned newspapers and media companies all across America. And of course, today, March 16th, 2022, this is the 195th anniversary of the Black press in America, when Freedom's Journal was first published on March 16th, 1827. So we got a lot to celebrate today. Looking forward to the program on Let It Be Known.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Chavis, again for joining us. And thank you, Josh Barker of the Amsterdamn News. We really appreciate you on this morning. So we're going to talk about Kanye West. Kim Kardashian was pictured Sunday in Los Angeles looking tense as her public feud with her ex Kanye West exploded. The reality star was glued to her phone as her boyfriend Pete Davidson had finally hit back at Kanye online. Pete taunted Kanye and leaked text messages that revealed a heated exchange between the pair. On Monday, Kim made the rare move of firing back at Kanye on social media, and it's gone back and forth. But here's the real rub here. And the mental health of Kanye West. We know that Kanye has been publicly has stated his diagnosis. And so this morning, we're going to talk with Dr. Thomas Oden, who is a board certified psychiatrist who specializes in, among other things, psychotherapy. Good morning, Dr. Oden.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me on today.
Thank you. And Dr. Oden, let's start right here, because we know that mental health is something that we in the Black community is particularly, we still have this stigma, if you will, right? But talk about somebody like Kanye West, who is not only an African American, but very famous and very wealthy. How does that play into with the mental health issue here, and him perhaps not, if he's in fact not getting the help he needs? How does that play in?
Right. So Kanye West is one of the richest African-American men in the world. He's accomplished great things. He has shifted music culture, fashion culture, and he's an amazing man, period. He's been forward with his diagnosis of bipolar disorder in the past. And I do believe that when you have so much resources available to you and you don't have a lot of people really checking you, really grounding you, you have so much wealth, it can be hard for you to take care of your mental health, because you have a lot of people who aren't telling you the truth because they're on payroll. Now, what we see, this theme of Kanye West is definitely this theme of loss. We saw firsthand in the public eye when his mother died, how he handled that. His music changed, his style changed, so many things about him changed because that was his anchor. I know a lot of people are seeing that now with the documentary that's currently out. And so this marriage that he's been in that's dissolved, that's also lost. So we are seeing intense emotional reaction likely to this theme of loss occurring in his life, but his wealth coupled with his personality traits that we've all seen and he's been outright about and, showcasing signs of narcissism, that's really creating a barrier for him to receive mental health treatment.
Well, and talk about, let's go back, Dr. Oden, to that photo that we just saw that Kanye pulled up that up in that car with the bed of roses, dark tinted windows, saying my vision is crystal clear. Obviously you don't treat Kanye, so obviously you can't speak specifically to his situation. But when you see that as a professional, what are you seeing there?
Right. I'm seeing love bombing, essentially. I'm seeing someone showcasing a lot of grandiosity. When he first bought the house across the street, that's when I became personally concerned, because I wasn't seeing it as a byproduct of bipolar illness. And I think it's important to make that distinction because it's very harmful to the stigma if we don't separate bipolar disorder from narcissism, from narcissistic abuse, from narcissistic manipulation tactics. And so to me, it seemed a bit more like manipulation. Of course, I haven't talked to him personally to really know the inner workings of his thought process behind that. But for me, it just seemed like a grandiose display that wasn't really warranted, wasn't reciprocated, wasn't asked for. His ex-wife has been asking for him to sign divorce papers this whole time. So to me, it was also showing that he wants the world to see how good of a man he is, how loving a father he is. And again, feeding that ego, fueling that, and trying to get that narcissistic supply. And so that was what I thought when I saw that.
Yeah, and Josh, I want to bring Josh Barker back into the conversation.
Absolutely.
As well. Josh, when you see the situation unfold, does it ever occur to any of us? And I'll start with you, Josh. Where are the people around Kanye? Dr. O did allude to that, his inner circle, or having the right people around him. But is there anyone? We know his mom was the close. He was so close to his mom. But is there anyone to say, "Hey, this something's not right here"?
Absolutely, that's a great question for all of us to kind of get an understanding, because unfortunately for Kanye West, this entire situation is being played out publicly. Because if it was you or me or someone that we knew, we would not know about it. No one would know unless we put it out there. So this is all being played out in social media. It's being played out probably on television, on other places, and it's very accessible. So we're able to see this whole thing play out. And the question really is, who is helping Kanye West? Does he have someone that he's, that's helping him with this bipolar, with this situation? Is he getting legal help? But of course, him not being able to see his children is probably taking a toll on him. But I think that having it play out publicly for everybody to see is probably having an even worse impact, because we're all seeing it. You turn on the news, you turn on the blogs and the websites, you're seeing detail by detail. Whenever something happens, like this situation with Pete Davidson, we're going to know about it. But if it was you or me, it wouldn't play out that way. It'd be very private and personal. So on top of, coupled with the fact that he's battling with mental health, kind of adding fuel to the fire is the fact that this is all playing out before our very eyes, and we all know what's going on.
Yeah, and Josh is an accomplished journalist. So Josh, I invite you to ask the doctor any questions you might have as well. And no, really jump in, because
Absolutely.
I think this is important. Go ahead, Josh.
I certainly do. We're big advocates here at the New York Amsterdamn News for mental health, and I'll even admit that I've gone to therapy. I think it's something that a lot of people are ashamed of, but I'm not ashamed of it. But I guess the question is, how do we get more African Americans to really get involved with seeking mental health assistance? Because a lot of times there's a stigma still. And I hate to say this, but for a lot of folks, religion is also a factor as well. God's going to fix it. God's going to make me feel better. I'm not denying that he won't, because I'm religious as well. But how do we get more African Americans to go take that first step to seek that help that some of us so desperately need?
Right. For one, that question is very complex, right? We are catching up as a people to a lot of the things. We're building wealth for the first time. We've had so many restrictions on us for hundreds of years. And so I think, first of all, we have to start to reframe this idea of success. And I constantly say this when I have opportunities to speak about this in the public, that success is not just your wealth, it's also your mental health, your physical health.
Absolutely.
And, we need to start having that conversation that, okay, I had challenges along the way, and these are the people that helped me. And so as we continue to reframe what success is and start to realize it's not about what's in your checking account, it's also about your friendships, your self-love, how you're taking care of yourself. That's one part of it. Second, we just need to be more upfront about what it takes to really get to where we are. I've worked with a therapist. It was very important. I reached a point in my career where I can tell that I had to up level and change the way I would think in order to really get the things that I want in life. And we see so many celebrities over time that achieved a lot and then they crash and burn. And we're like, wow, they had so many things going well for them.
Right.
What happened? And ultimately because they weren't looking at their mental health. And that can play out in a lot of different ways. And so, A, we do need more resources available. B, we need more representation in the mental health space. 3, we also need people to be honest about their struggles when they are successful. And so we need our leaders, we need our celebrities to be open and honest about that, to share their wisdom and not just monetary gains, but also the emotional toll. And once we see that, I think we'll start to make more strides.
And Dr. You again, let's preface this by saying we know that you're not treating Kanye. You don't have the insights that you would normally have if he was your patient. But does the behavior concern you? And here's where I'm going with this. A lot of people believe that O.J. Simpson killed his ex-wife, even though he was acquitted. They believe he killed his ex-wife. But we saw the behaviors leading up to that incident when she was killed, right? Does that concern you? Kanye, he's been accused and flat out stalking Kim Kardashian. He's constantly on TikTok and social media complaining about her. He's sending her those flowers. Does it concern you that this behavior can escalate?
I'm not concerned particularly about it escalating into violence, but he's doing a lot of emotional and psychological harm. Kanye, I mean, his documentary is out. I've been a fan for a good chunk of my life. I feel like he's a sensitive man. I don't see him becoming violent, but he's doing a lot of harm. And I think he's doing harm to his children as well. A lot of manipulation tactics. He's turning his fans and telling them to threaten, her current partner. He's changing this narrative, and then she's online trying to defend herself. The children are going to see this. This is all being televised and recording. And so I worry about how they're going to look at this material over time. So I think it's a lot of emotional harm, psychological harm, which would be very harmful and very traumatic. So is he doing harm? Yes. Is it going to escalate to O.J. Simpson type of scenario? Not really sure. I highly doubt it. But, overall, though, it's still very concerning, very damaging. And I just really hope that he gets the help and shows us the next level of his greatness by receiving assistance and letting people around him actually be able to tell him the truth so that, we all can see healing done in real time.
Well, we also saw Dr. Oden along those lines. We saw his social media threats toward D.L. Hughley. We saw Kanye's threats toward Pete Davidson. Going back, when you see that again, is that also just being overly emotional?
Right. So when it comes to violence prediction, it can be hard to predict. Obviously, history of prior violence is how you can predict future violence. And he doesn't have that history. So again, I think it's hard to really predict if he's going to escalate in that way. But obviously, this can escalate in certain ways that are unpredictable. I think he is in an unpredictable scenario right now. If he doesn't get assistance, if he doesn't let people really help him, I'm assuming that legal aspects of this are going to get involved with restraining orders. I mean, just for how he's escalating. But again, I think the violence prediction, hard to tell. He has made the video that was a bit threatening, the music video, and he's sending these threatening texts. And so it is concerning, but you can't always predict that that's going to turn to actual real life violence.
Yeah. Josh?
Well, I had a quick question. We saw earlier this year, I think a couple months ago, we saw former Miss USA Chelsea Christ committed suicide. And while we're talking about harming others, the ultimate other bad situation that can happen is self-harm when it comes. And we're seeing rates of suicide increasing among the Black community, especially among our youth, unfortunately. And we saw this beautiful, young, successful Black woman who was validated as one of the most beautiful people in the world kill herself. And it shocked so many people here in New York City and around the world that somebody could do this. There's a very interesting book by Terry Williams, who I'm sure you all know, called Black Pain. It Just Looks Like We're Not Hurting. Obviously, there was something going on with her, but we all know someone who, or maybe we don't know if they're going through something. What's the best way to reach out to folks and get involved to see what really is going on to prevent things like a Chelsea Christ from happening or what's happening to Kanye West? But go ahead. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Right. So one sign that someone could be going through an intense mental health crisis is isolation. That's probably one of the primary symptoms. Hard to really detect these days because of the pandemic. People are kind of getting used to going out again. But if you're used to talking to someone and you know they've had a lot of stressors going on in their life and you haven't been able to reach them lately, they've become a little bit more less responsive, that can be a sign. But if you know someone's struggling, that can be a very difficult conversation, right? Because we all want to do our best, but we all don't have that training, that background to really give proper advice. But we can say, how can I be of assistance to you? I see that you're going through a lot right now. I want to help. How can I help? I'm open to listen. Also, when we're listening, make sure to not insert your own story into the narrative. Make sure to not try to oversimplify what they're going through. But the first step is just really asking someone, what can I do to help you out? I see that you're going through a lot. It's hard to navigate these things by yourself, and I'm open to be of assistance in any way I can. And I think that's a really good entry point. At that point, the person who needs the help needs to actually communicate that. And to also mention about Kanye West, now, I think you've made some really good points as far as how it could turn into violence, because we have seen resentful stalkers do things like kill the family, then kill themselves, right? So again, this could turn into something. I'm not saying that's not the case, and I hope that he gets help before it progresses to that. But I am an eternal optimist, and I hope that legal situation will get involved. I hope that Kanye just doesn't want to lose his wealth. He seems to have a very great sense of self, so that to me seems like likely a barrier to wanting to end your life and in your family's life when you think so highly of yourself, And he's done great things to have that, but at the same time, it's time to really humble yourself and be open to assistance.
Well, two things, Dr. Oden. One, I quote D.L. Hughley along those lines. He says the difference between Kanye and a restraining order is about 20 hits and a couple of $100 million. I think his point is well taken, that anybody else would have a restraining order against them by now. Also, Denise Rolock Barnes, the publisher of the Washington Informer, she writes in that we're talking about Kanye's mental health, but what about the victims? At what point should they seek help to address the trauma caused by those with mental health issues? Should they seek help too?
Yes, ASAP. I mean, his children are going to need therapists because of this. I mean, this is a devastating event that's taking place. I've had patients that are triggered and friends and family that have been triggered by what he's done. I mean, we've all looked up to this man. He's done so many great things, and he's making people get triggered about when they've been stalked, when they've been love bombed by a narcissist, and so, yes, they should get in therapy ASAP to review this because, they're obviously Kim Kardashian is very successful. She's a very motivated person. And it's pretty easy to ignore your mental health when you're pushing forward, trying to keep your brand together in the midst of this and taking care of your children. But they should seek therapy ASAP. The children are going to need therapy from this for sure. I know this must be a very difficult time for them, and I really feel for the family.
Yeah, and what about those who on the other side, they totally back Kanye. They say, the Kardashian curse, if you will, and how they are great manipulators themselves, particularly, Kim being a great manipulator. She did once love him at least, right? She does understand that these things are triggers, this public social media wars. What responsibility does she have? Not to say that she has responsibility here, but I'm just playing devil's advocate because you look at social media and you see all types of characters say this or say that, and there are some who are saying that.
Right. I think she's handled a lot of this with a lot of grace, actually. Even when they were married and he would have different things occur when he was running for president and things like that, she defended him and talked about his mental health struggles. And so I think she's done a pretty good job and really trying to maintain and contain the family structure, but not really overtly insulting him, not by overtly, expressing some of the concerns that were going on during their marriage. Now, I think what the public and his fans have been confusing is that many people are thinking what he's currently exhibiting is signs of bipolar illness, and I disagree. I feel like this is 90% Kanye West narcissism with a ton of resources and wealth to really enact his ego the way he sees fit, and maybe 5%, 10% bipolar illness, maybe some impulsivity, some grandiosity. But this is not a reflection of bipolar disorder. Many things I've seen him do is very intentional, very well thought out. It doesn't seem that impulsive to me. It doesn't seem disorganized to me. I've seen him speaking on videos. He doesn't have rapid pressure speech and all these other things that are very suggestive of bipolar active illness taking place or a manic episode. And so I'm seeing a lot of narcissism here. I think fans and people are very confused about what's what. And I think it's important to make that distinction because, again, if we think this is bipolar illness, that is also very damaging to the stigma. But overall, I think Kim Kardashian, I think she's been handling this actually pretty well. And I don't think she needs to do anything more other than get proper assistance and take some legal action to really protect herself and her family. And so just sometimes you can force someone to get assistance too legally. So he may be heading in that direction as well. But I don't really have any critiques for her in regards to this devastating situation.
Yeah. And Josh, before we go back to Dr. Chavis, let's get your perhaps you have a last question for Dr. Oden or last thought on this.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking a lot about adults here, but a lot of our youth, especially during COVID, have been going through issues with mental health. Studies show that because of the trauma that we go through in the African American community with racism and other things, it affects us. But especially with our young people, our teenagers, or even younger than that. How do we reach the young people? What's the best way to make sure that their mental health is okay and getting them connected with the help that they need?
Right. Our youth are extremely struggling right now. Suicide rates within the young adolescent population amongst Black youth has actually been climbing before the pandemic began. And so you can only imagine the number is a lot worse right now. It's important to, even if you as a parent, you haven't worked with a therapist before, you don't know if, okay, should my child see a psychiatrist who prescribe medication? Everybody's pretty on the fence about that. Or should they see a therapist? You should assume that if you have a child right now as a teenager, you're likely kind of struggling right now. So if you make that assumption just off the bat, then you can put in a place of like, hey, what do I do about it? And then from there, you can, have them see a therapist, and you may have them talk to the school counselor. You may just call the school and say, hey, I know that maybe he's not like underperforming in school right now, but I just want to make sure things are okay, just to double check because a lot's going on. It's a pandemic. Can they have a session with you? Let me get your thoughts about that. Or you can just, preemptively just have them see a therapist, just a consultation, just to kind of check up on them, just to see. But I would just make the assumption that if you have a child right now, they are likely seeing a world rapidly changing around them. They're likely having a hard time making sense of that. And if you go from that standpoint, I think you can really make a big difference in the system and do some proactive things in that for those measures.
Well,
Absolutely.
Dr. Chavis.
Yes, thank you very much. And I want to thank Josh and the great work they're doing at the Amsterdamn News. And Dr. Oden, you're right on point. I happen to personally know Kanye West. I was one of his early mentors. I know Kim Kardashian also personally. And I think that we should be very careful how we judge people when they start, quote unquote, acting out. And I think the words of Dr. Oden are very important, not just for Kanye and not just for Kim and their children, but for all brothers and sisters in our communities. We do need to take the issue of mental health more seriously as a people. And we need to also know that there are solutions, there are therapies, there are ways to navigate through this. And so I think that's the benefit of today's program. But I just want to say that we should not casually talk about, and I know we're not, but I was there the very week that Kanye's mother died. We know that he loved his mother, but a lot of people don't realize how much she loved her son. She was actually providing his management through his career to greatness. Kanye is a genius, a creative genius. And a lot of times the creative people have idiosyncrasies, and they do have narcissism. But the thing is, I think that we should pray for the family, the children, and hope that they all get the kind of therapy that they all need and that move on. But I also believe, I agree with Dr. Oden, a lot of what Kanye is doing is intentional. It's not irrational. He started out. He's a marketing genius. He's going to sell some more records. They're going to sell some more clothes, and he's going to move on eventually. But the trauma that may take place with his children, I think we all should be concerned about. And as what Josh mentioned, there's a real serious escalation of suicide within Black America. And those of us in the Black press, you know, one of the reasons why the Black press has lasted for 195 years to this day is because the news and the coverage and the issues that we report to our community also is a form of therapy. We live in such a negative world when it's hard to see Black excellence, and that's where the Black press comes in. So yes, we should talk about the problems, particularly the mental problems that our community faces, but we should also put it in the context that it's amazing that Black America has gotten to the place that it's gotten to, despite all of the hurdles, despite all the sufferings and the hardships that we've had to endure and go through as a people. We need to keep pushing forward. We should have compassion and concern about Kanye West and his family and his children, but we also should have that same passion and concern, compassion and concern about all the children, about all the families and the communities in which we serve.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Oden and Josh, if you don't mind hanging out for a few minutes after we go off the air, we want to remind everyone it is Black Press Week, and it's actually Black Press Day. As Dr. Chavis said earlier, on this date in 1827, Freedom's Journal was born in New York City. We're celebrating all year long, but this is the big day here, and tomorrow is a big day in this planned celebration, beginning right here with Let It Be Known, where our special guest will be Dr. Riche Richardson and the father of megastar Beyonce, Dr. Matthew Knowles. They will visit us here on Let It Be Known tomorrow morning for a special Let It Be Known. That will be followed later in the day. Dr. Chavis, does the National Forum begin at 11 a.m. Eastern Time?
Yes.
11 a.m. Eastern Time.
At 11, we're enshrining the iconic publisher, Bill Goff, the publisher of the Chicago Citizen newspaper group. We're enshrining him. And then the rest of the National Issues Forum will start about 11:20. But everybody should log in at 11 a.m. tomorrow Eastern Time at nmpa-events.com.
Absolutely. Well said, of course. And join us tomorrow for a big day. We will see you then. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.